All right, hey everyone. This time I plan on going through all the new Payload versions from 3.60 to the one that was just released at the time of this recording today at 3.65. So really looking forward to getting through and learning more about all the features, bug fixes, and everything else that's been released up to this point. So on the last video, the last live stream, I got through version 3.59 before my cold caught up to me. Couldn't really talk anymore. Started to get a little scraggly. So that's all done. You can catch the live stream on my channel. You can go watch it if you want, but I do have a cut up version of that coming out in a couple of weeks. And then I will do the same thing with this one. So I'll have that come out, and the next day this one will come out as well. So if you don't stick around for the whole thing for this live stream, you can look forward to seeing a cut up version of this to make it feel a little bit more streamlined, but also still a little bit more personalized and authentic, because I will be live streaming and just yapping. So where we left off was just on version 3.59, I think 0.1 is what it was. Yep, 359.1. And so we'll pick it up with 3.60. And this is actually the point where Payload CMS, their team, started to put some code examples in their features. So that's going to help us honestly figure out what each thing does, but we're still going to implement it into the code that I have. There will be a link to the repo in the video. Sorry, there's a link to the repo in the description, but it will be after the live stream is posted. I don't have the repo available quite yet. So when you rewatch this or a little bit later on, the description will have the repo in it. So enough talking there. Let's go ahead and jump in and start looking at 3.60. So we'll do exactly what we did last time, where we're going to go line by line and look through all of the features. And here, the first one is that we can accept multiple locales in the fallback locale. And what this essentially is you can just provide an array now. And so what will happen is if you set a locale, so we have our locale set to English here in this example, and then you set your fallback locale. If English If English isn't available, then it'll fall back to the French translation. If the French translation isn't available, it'll fall back to the Spanish translation. So this is one of many localization improvements that Payload CMS is doing. I've heard from a couple of people as I've been interacting on Reddit and other channels that localization is probably not the strongest part of Payload CMS, so it's really good to see that more localization enhancements are coming, and this being one of them. We talked about one in the last video as well, but this is one that I think is going to help improve the localization experience with Payload CMS. So I'm just double checking the notes here. Yep, so this is exactly what I said. So if we were going to implement this in code, we would not be able to because we would have to set up a query, which I guess we could do, but that doesn't really seem necessary, especially since I don't think I have any localization enabled anyway. So I'm not going to worry about that. All right, so the next feature is there's this settings menu to add, there's the ability now to add the settings menu to the navigation sidebar. So first, we actually need to, I didn't do this, need to upgrade from 3.59. Confused why I didn't do 3.59.1. But either way, we'll look at 3.60.0. Okay. Whoops. All right, so 359.0, 360.0, replace all, do pn pmi, just like we did last time, and then we're going to, as soon as that's done, clear out our next folder. There we go. So, next, we should be upgraded here. Now, the settings menu, let's go ahead and just spin up our development server, pull that up, and come over to the admin panel and log in. And we'll log in with our super secure password. All right. So let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, that was unhelpful. So we can look here at admin components settings menu. Let's see what we need to do. Configuration option that allows user to inject custom menu items into the navigation. When configured, a gear icon appears above the logout button in the navigation sidebar. So we can go over to our payload config, we'll go to our admin, and we'll start with components because we don't have that yet. And then we'll do settings menu, which is going to look for a custom component or an array of custom components at least. So before we do this, actually, I want to see. We'll do our generate import map, generate types, and then pnpmdev. What I'm looking for is I want to see if there is a default in here already or if we have to make it from scratch. I'll make it from scratch. It's not going to be a big deal, but I just want to make sure I don't have to first. All right, perfect. So there is no default. Get rid of that. Which means then we need to come into, we'll go to our source, we'll just add a new directory called components, and in the component we'll have our settings menu. We'll just do item, and then index.tsx. We'll create that file, and we'll add it, sure. So then I'm just going to make this super simple. We're going to export test item just to make it easy. Export constant test item, and then we just want to return, we'll say a div with a paragraph tag of test item for sidebar. And then we'll just export default test item, come up to our config again, take our settings menu. And then here we're going to need our path, which I never get right the first time. So we're going to try it out. Components, settings, menu, item, and then index.tsx. And since this is the default export, I don't need to include test item like this because this is how you do named exports. This is for default exports. So now we'll want to generate import map. We'll see if this actually works. And then we can refresh. Oh, I got it right the first time. So here we can now see the gear icon. If I click on it, I can see test item for sidebar. So this, of course, is not very helpful. So why don't we do something like a link? And we'll do it from Payload UI. We can do href, and we'll just do the home page. So now if I click on this, it'll go over to the home page. So that's probably a little bit more useful. Or if you wanted like a specific media, or if you wanted a link to some logs, or even if you wanted to do a link to just any one of your collections here, you could do that as well. So that's really easy to set up, and you just get to make it however you want. So that covers this one. That's not what we're, oh shoot, that was right. This one. You can change the gear icon because that is exported. Perfect. So that's everything for the settings menu. Then there's some plugin multi-tenant stuff. This is where their example code is going to come in handy because I don't have multi-tenant set up, and that takes a while to set up, so I'm not going to do it. But you can now have access overrides at the collection level. So here you can set if something is supposed to be shared, for example, and if it's true, you can override the access by the key. So some of the props passed in would be the result, the key, and the request. So the key, of course, would be like read, update, delete, and create. Then the result is what's returned here from your return statement, and then the request would be things like your payload or your user. So you can do that now with multi-tenant collection access overrides. You can now assign multiple tenants per document. So the tenant field override now includes has many relationships. So if you want multiple documents assigned to multiple tenants, you can now do that. And then in a similar vein, you have the user collection access overrides where you get a function that does the same thing that we talked about up here with the access result override, but instead for the user access result override. So now you can again check for read, create, update, and delete. You get more arguments, but you get the key and the access result. And you're able to overwrite and override whatever user access result you need to override for the multi-tenant plugin. So that was 3 quick hit things for the multi-tenant plugin. You can now add collection filtering to the upload feature, which is a pretty big deal. So what this is going to do is you can enable and disable collections that can be used in a upload feature. So for example, if we had 2 media collections, so here I'll just copy our media and do something like documents. hit add, do documents, just get all of this set up to be right. We don't need an alt text for document. We'll leave the fields array empty. Then we'll come to our payload config, register our documents collection. Make sure that imported correctly. It sure did. Now, if we go to our let's go to our page. I don't think I have an upload field yet, but I will do that. So underneath the slug field, we can just add a new type of upload field. And then the name will be upload, if I could type. And then now we need, in the admin, oh wait, we need relation to, well, hold on. Oh, this is for the rich text lexical. So please hold. So we can go back to our users collection, which does have the uploads feature. And what we'll set up is enabled collections. We'll just say media and documents, which is not in our types quite yet. But when I regenerate our types, which is what I just did, we can come over to our dashboard here. So we have documents, we have media, we can go to our users, which has this lexical field. We can do an upload, and I can select which collection I want to browse. So it's going to default to media because media comes first, and then document comes second. So it's not alphabetized, it's by the order in which you organized your enabled collections. Now, if I get rid of documents, and refresh, go back to upload, I lose that ability. So I'm not able to see the document collection anymore. Now, say you had a bunch of, I'm trying to think of a use case for disabling your collections, because you could just include enable. Well, we can see, let's do, if we do disabled collections and we just do media, we should see documents show up here. So if I refresh, do upload, yeah, we only see documents. So if you have a ton of collections and you only want to exclude one or two, you'll want to use disabled collections. Or again, if you have 12 collections for media, but you only want to include one or two, you'll want to do enabled collections. So I will just remove this because I want all of my collections to be available here in my lexical rich text block, which now they both are. Great. So we now have scope. Sorry about that. All right, so we have added collection filtering to upload feature, which we just talked about. Then we have the client-side block markdown shortcuts. So let's see if this is what I think it is. So I'm going to come here, and if we do 2 $, test title, and then save. Let's go to the API. All right, maybe it's something that needs to be enabled, so we'll come back here. Okay, add support for client-side markdown shortcuts for blocks with the admin.jsx property. Oh, okay, so if I do admin, maybe, for blocks. So in our block, we'll have admin, JSX. Let's see what that needs. Code component. Okay, so what we can do is it looks like there's a new code block that comes from lexical now. So let's try adding that code block. And then, yeah, we're going to need to regenerate our types and our import map. And then refresh this monstrosity. Perfect. All right, so now if we come here and get our code, well, the code block's very nice, but I don't know about Markdown here, unless Markdown. Okay, helpful, but not exactly what I need. Okay, so this is not what I was thinking it is. Okay, so what this is actually doing is you're now able to use, well, let me watch this real quick. All right, that's the code block. Oh, this is just the video example of the code block. All right, so I need to look more into this. So add support for client-side markdown shortcuts for blocks with the admin.jsx property. Previously, this was only supported on the server side. So I'm wondering if I'm just not on client side here. So if we get rid of that, there is no markdown here, but we'll come back to it. Yeah, I didn't see anything about markdown shortcuts in previous versions. So what's really important here is that we see that there's a new code block, which is easy to import as a block in our blocks feature. So that's, well, let's look through our bug fixes. This MacBook it's an M4 Pro, 48 gigabyte memory, but definitely a MacBook Pro. All right, so for bug fixes, the blocks as JSON property was added to the D1 SQLite. This mimics now what can happen in Postgres, where you can actually have a whole column that holds JSON, just similar to what it would be done in MongoDB. So great new feature there for SQLite. Oh, there's more. Let's open that in a new tab. E-commerce seeding issues. Okay, so all that looks good. So the HTML converter feature has officially been deprecated. That has been known for a while, but now there's a JS doc saying that it's deprecated. Cool. All right, so that's it for 3.60. We'll move along to 3.61.1. So I will stop this, take 3.60, change it to 61.1, replace all, delete next, PNPMI. All right, now I can, let's start looking at some of the features here. Oh, here is the MCP. This was released in beta. I have a video of this coming out shortly, but I do have the repo here, which we're actually going to need. So I'm going to leave this pulled up as well. But there's a bunch of stuff that came out with the MCP plugin. Really excited to dive into that. Really excited for you guys to see this video as well. So be on the lookout for that one coming out. I think it's next week. So next Monday, this video should come out. Really excited for this feature. Very nice, very good quality of life improvement for Payload CMS. But I'm going to leave this open because there are some new updates that have come up that I have not done yet. So 3.63. Let's set all of this to 3.65.0. All right, now that that's done, we can take a look here. So we'll take more of a deep dive into the MCP plugin, but essentially what it does is it turns your Payload CMS instance into an MCP server. It gives you the ability to communicate with your collections and have, for my example, Claude Code, create posts, create pages, create whatever you want based on the permissions you give it. So it does a lot of cool things. You can make your own prompts, you can make your own tools. There's just so much you can do with it. Really excited to get that one out there, but we'll be taking a look at this in a little bit. Now let's take a look at the bug fixes. So one bug fix that comes to mind here is this: TypeScript requires fields when draft true despite passing draft true. What this means is that fields during validation were still tripping Payload and preventing it from saving that document, even though draft is supposed to bypass validation. Like, you're not supposed to fill out all the required information when you're in draft. So now that's fixed as of 3.61. The slug field now accepts localizations. So there's a localization argument, which we talked about on the last stream. In the last video, the localization argument was not available. So there is now a way to localize the slug. Okay, that looks to be it for 3.61. 3.61.1 was just bug fixes. Where, excuse me, where now the where now before closing a doc drawer with edits, you're asked instead of it just closing and losing all of your changes. Oh, geez. All right. So that's it for 3.61 and 3.61.1. So we can move up to 3.62, which was also a pretty big update. So I don't know why I did it this way. Oh, well, I'm glad I did, because 3.62.1 is also a bug fix, which we'll talk about because I remember that actually being an issue. So let's go ahead and select all of these and replace all. Do PNPMI again. So for features, we have jobs access control now, where you can access either the queue or the cancel. So if I come over to our payload config, I've got my jobs here, and you can provide access. And so this is one way that you can, with the access, this is how you can tell Vercel or any other serverless platform that they can communicate with your cron. You can set a header and have the header be an environment variable in your deployment, and then your deployment will tell payload to run or schedule a job. So that's one way you can use access. Now you can also have specific accesses for your queue, as well as your cancel. So we don't really have any access controls, but just to show it off, well, we can just do request. And for this request, we'll just do request user email is equal to my email. Do the same thing here. And so what this is going to tell, one thing at a time. And so now what this is going to do is only the user with this email address can queue a new job. Only this user with this email can cancel a job. So if another user or an external site or anything else tries to queue or cancel jobs, it will be rejected. So this is one way that you're able to now more fine-tunedly, more granularly queue and cancel your jobs with specific users. You now have, excuse me. We now have a per field time zone configuration. So if we go over to our page, for example, we can create a new field, which will be a date field. Do type date, then name of date, then we'll have a time zone, and we'll have a default time zone of America, New York, which is the time zone I'm in, but we'll also have supported time zones, which will be an array, and we will have a label of New York, for example, value of America, New York, and then do this again, but with Los Angeles, for example. And so now I can save this and hit and then generate import map and types, and then run the development server. And we'll want to go to our pages. Oh, leave anyway. this bring me to pages, hopefully. Oh, all right, got to delete next real quick. Try that again. Refresh. All right, now I can save this and I can see that I have a date with a time zone of New York. I can switch it to Los Angeles. If I wanted to enforce a time zone, I could do that with just setting one time zone and setting the default to that time zone. And so now that's enforced, I can't change that. And if I don't have a default time zone, interesting, it defaults back to New York. Okay. So you have to make sure you have a default time zone and a supported time zone in order to enforce that time zone. All right. And so this is different because you would have to set a time zone at the config level. So you would set, I think it's in admin. Nope, outside of admin. Interesting. Oh, okay. Default time zone. Okay, yeah, so you would have to set it at the admin level. So this gives you some more granularity in where you're defining your time zones. So it's per field now instead of just at the global level. All right, so big update was this KV storage adapters. This is something that I'll have to come back and play with a little bit, but this is just key value storage with the ability to do in-memory database and Redis for enhanced data persistence and performance. So I don't have to make this up again, but this is for the foundation of the upcoming real-time API. So exciting features coming up, but the whole thing is that it's fast, it's key value access, and it'll allow you to be flexible in where you get those key value stores. So you can set that up in your payload. So we can just set up KV here. And then some of the options. Oh, it's not that. It's KV, and then you'll want to do adapter. Yeah, adapter. Now oh, here we go. So you have the ability for a couple of adapters. So you can do your database, key, KV adapter, which this isn't going to import automatically yet. You can also do in memory. So I'll do this one, KV adapter. So I can copy this and we're going to import, I don't have to copy it. So I can do in memory KV adapter. So now that is started, and then you of course have Redis as well. So I will generate import map and type since I edited my config. Refresh. And then I can come back. And then you can start using these, excuse me, in, please hold. Yeah, so you can use in your local API, for example, we've got payload here. We can do const kv, do await payload kv, and then here you can do things like kv clear. What is this? Oh, payload kv, and then you can do something like clear. There we go. So you can clear your kv, you can delete anything with the key. So you want the key to delete. You can get the key, you can check if it has a key, you can list the keys, and you can set the key and the value. So I'm not going to do any of that right now because this is a bigger package that's going to take some time to explore fully. So I'll move on down to the configurable toast position. So bottom right is the default, which we can see if we were to say delete this, we see the toast show up in the bottom right. But now if we go back to our payload config, we can oh, we have toast already. So what we can do is we can go into our toast option and set position. Say I don't want it in the bottom right, but I want it in the top center. For whatever reason, I might be able to do that. If I go to pages and I make an update here, we can now see updated successfully there. So you can move it around wherever you want, where maybe I want it bottom center instead. So I'll set that. Oh, and I can see the toast pop up right there. So just more configuration you can do with payload. So great. Now let's take a look at bug fixes. That was it for 3.62. All right, so bug fixes. We can take a look and we see not a whole lot going on here. Perfect. Refactors. Great. All right, so one bug fix that kind of broke version 3.62 that was quickly patched, which is why 3.62.1 came out. All Postgres users were having to create a new migration. You now don't have to do that if you start with 3.62.1 or higher. So when you enable KV, you honestly don't want to have to create a migration because that's just a hassle. But now with this bug fix, you don't have to do that. All right, so we can move up to 3.63. So we'll do that. 3.63, so I can copy this. And then replace all. Remove next. And then we're going to run pnpm I. All right, then let's take a look here. We have polymorphic uploads. So we have an upload field that we created. No, we don't. We'll create an upload field. So I will do that. And then we will do a type of upload. We will do a name of upload. We'll do a relation to as an array with media and documents. So this now will allow me to upload. Oh, first I'll generate import map, generate types, and then run pnpm dev. And then I can refresh, and the pages should load up with a new upload field. So now I can create new. I'm gonna have to actually bring over an image, so I'll do that. Oh, here's an old headshot of me, little baby me. I'll just click and drag it in here, and I'm able to set either media or document. So this also works with bulk upload. So I only uploaded one image, but what you would do is I could set the test alt, and then I would be able to move forward or edit all, and then I can choose between media and document. So, and it's aware that media requires alt and document does not. So the alt field goes away. So I don't need to upload this, but now you can see polymorphic uploads in action. And now there's a new UI option to duplicate your locale. So you can duplicate a page into locale. As I mentioned earlier in this video, we're now starting to see lots of localization updates with Payload. Again, one of the more weak areas of Payload is localization. So this is just more support for localization in general. And this is just a UI feature. I wonder if it's something I can show real quick. Oops. Let me see. It does not look like I can, because I don't know where my actual project is for that. And there's no guarantee it would work anyway. But I could also do, if I do config, I can do localization, set it to true. Localization config. So I can do default language is English. This is starting to make stuff up. So let's take a look at our localization config. So we just need our locales and the default locale. So we can do locales, we'll do English, Spanish, French. Default locale will be English. That should be all we need to do. So we have locale there, and then I can copy to locale. Perfect, this is way easier. And then I can copy it to whichever locale I want, and I can override existing field data if this already exists, or I can just leave this unchecked. So if I copy this, I now have locale testing. I don't know what testing is in Spanish, but I can look it up real quick. Testing in Spanish. Oh, pruebas. Oh. So I'm going to use this. So now if I save this, I have that locale. Oh. I don't have localization set up, so if this doesn't work, this is why. Oh, I don't have text localized. So if I go to page, and I don't care about data loss here, do not do this if you care about your data. So I'm just going to put localization or localized true here in text, and that's luckily going to keep my data, but your data may disappear if you try doing that. So I've got my locale there in Spanish, then I can do testing here in English, and now I can change between locales. If I wanted to, testing in French, I will copy this. And then French doesn't have anything, but I could copy from Spanish. So copy from Spanish to French will overwrite existing field data. We see el ensayo show up here for text, and then I can change that for French. So that's the copy to for localization, or sorry, the duplicate to for localization. So super helpful tool for those using localization. And bug fixes. There is some work happening for next.js. If you are interested in getting next.js up and running for your Payload app, there is a next.js 16 temporary Discord channel. I would check that out, give feedback there. That's going to be the quickest and best way to get next.js 16 working with Payload. As far as I understand, it's on next.js to get working with Payload, which is interesting. But we should see support for 16 come pretty quickly. Okay, I think that's it for 3.63, at least all that we care about. Then we can come up to 3.64, which now I'm going to check every time that 0.1 does not exist, so I don't have to keep scrolling up. But I can replace 3.63 with 3.64. We'll need to remove our next folder, run pnpmi, and now we can start looking at this. You now have UTC time zone and date fields, so if you ever want to use just the universal time, what does that stand for? Coordinated universal time. Yes, so if you ever want to use coordinated universal time, you can do that now in your time zones. We have that, so let's go ahead and go to our page. And in our time zone, I could just do label coordinated universal time. I don't know what this is trying to suggest, but value, this just needs to be UTC. Then we can run our development server and generate our types and import map while we're at it. And then let's set this as our default, just so we see it pop up right away. So when I refresh, any second now. Oh, I need to set the value. So I can set UTC. Refresh. Interesting. So I can't set UTC as my default. Oh, I can. It's just saved. I understand now. Okay. So the reason that didn't work at first is that I have my document here saved with New York time zone, but if I get rid of this, it can show up now as coordinated universal time. So I save that, and then now that's what I see. So that's the UTC time zone. There is now build support for TurboPack. Again, that's default in next.js 16, so this is more work just to get supported on next.js 16. Now we have in our MCP plugin, so this is what I was mentioning earlier, some updates that are happening. Oh, there we go. I have 3.65 here, but we're not quite there yet. This is 3.64. I have my MCP server working on my posts. Now what I can do is in my hooks, if I can find them, this is the website template, so some of this stuff is already done. I can add a before read hook. And what this is going to do, I'll finish typing it out first, is now I can check if my request has the payload API, and from that payload API is the value MCP, then that means that it's being read by the MCP server instead of through the local API, for example. So I can change the behavior that I want from my MCP server. So doc title MCP hook override. So I wonder then if I can test this out. So I'm going to and then I need to return doc. Oh, I'm probably in the wrong spot. That's probably a field hook. So let's go ahead and look for my collection hooks, which is where this actually is. So I can save this. I'm going to run pnpm dev, and while that loads up, I'm going to change directory desktop codes, and then server. All right, so I just went to my terminal. I'm going to start Claude. Claude is going to have some MCP servers, which apparently I need to reconnect because it has been a minute. So let's go ahead and look back and see. I'm hoping that I just have it, but I don't think I do. Oh, there it is. Okay. .cms API header. All right, perfect. I don't care about this API key. Do whatever you want with it. It's not an actual API key, so now I can start Claude. I can look at my MCP servers. I see it down here connecting, so that's good. But it failed. API key is valid. Okay, so I will go to my local host, go to my admin. So this is on me. Transport the header bearer. So I just need to make sure. So if I do my very secure password, go to my pages, API key, we'll do my test. We'll copy this and replace this API key. then try this again. All right, let's go to payload again. MCP plugin, because I need to make sure that this command is correct. MCP add transport header bearer API key. I know my API key is valid. API MCP. It's weird that it's not letting me connect. That's package. Let's do MCP plugin. All of this still looks, oh, there we go. MCP. Now let's try reconnecting. I see some type errors down here, so that's probably something. All right, so we got verbose logs showing up. We're good now. Again, if you want to see how to actually set this up, video coming out on Monday for it at the time of this recording. So what was I doing? Right, okay, so we have this in our posts index. We have our title, so I can check, dang. Okay. So return all post titles. So ideally what this does is it returns the doc title with the MCP hook override. So I can hit yes. Sometimes I get this maximum allowed tokens, which is weird. I don't know why it does that. All right, Claude's going a little crazy right now, but I will let it do its work. Let him cook, and we'll see what he does. No, I want you to use the... It feels weird telling it to have to like follow the instructions. Oh, so now it's getting me all of the titles because I did ask for all the titles. That makes sense. So I hit yes. And then now I can see, since the MCP hook override is included in the doc title here. So the before read hook is telling Claude before you read this document to change the title to MCP hook override. So this isn't something that we'll see in our local API because we only have that for the MCP. Let's see what the other option is here. So local, for the local API, REST API, and GraphQL. So that's it there. Let's move back over to our, excuse me, back to our features released in 3.64. We have the custom auth configuration also for the MCP plugin. You can override your authentication. So instead of using the API key that I did, if you want your own authentication or authorization rather, you can have that set up here. So Yeah, so this overrides the API key authentication with custom authorization logic. So you get to set that up yourself. I will let smarter people than me figure all that out. So I'm happy with my little before read hook here. There's now also translation support for the redirect plugin. I have a video out on the redirect plugin, but I do not have time to go into the redirect plugin here. Regardless, you can provide in your internationalization object, you can provide translations for your redirects plugin. So in English, the plugin redirects the from URL will be source URL, which is a custom title here just based on what this says. But in Germany, I don't want to get that wrong. DE locale. Yeah, it's German. Okay. So in German, you can provide a different way to read the redirects plugin fields. So more support for internationalization and localization. Like I've mentioned a couple times now, Payload does have that prioritized and more features are coming out very quickly. So let's look at bug fixes. Okay, not seeing a whole bunch here, but localization, version. Error on setting documents on uploads with has many. Save button becomes disabled after save. Okay, don't return full language. Oh, okay, so this is a big deal. The Slate editor, this was always going to happen. So with Payload 3 coming out, both Slate and Lexical were supported, but it was very clear that Lexical was going to take the place of Slate eventually. So now we can see that the Slate editor is being deprecated in favor of Lexical. So if you use Slate, know that its days are numbered. There have been some additional job queue documentation. I've seen this show up. I will say that just so you're not alone, the documentation for job queues, not even just the documentation, the job whole feature set of Payload CMS is pretty confusing. So it takes some work in getting used to actually use it, but it is doable. I have a couple of projects using it. I've seen people use it. You just have to really fiddle with it a little bit in order for it to work like you want it to, but it does work, I promise. I also have a video out on how to use the job queue, at least to schedule posts, so feel free to check that out as well. All right, I think that's it here. So that's 3.64, and that brings us to, as of today, 3.65. So I'm in the MCP server. We're going to come back to this, but I can exit that for now. Then I need to come over to our payload config, take our 3.64 and replace it with 3.65. And there is no 0.1. This just came out today, so excited to look at this. I have not looked at it yet, so this will be a good surprise for both of us. All of us. I don't know who I'm talking to. All right, so we've updated the 3.65. We need to run pnpmi. And then import map types npm-dev. Cool, so we are upgraded. There is now, ooh, that's a word, augmentable interfaces for collection and global custom properties. Interesting, okay. I will have to read this one. So let's take a look at this. I think I just got really tripped up with augmentable, which just means the ability to add. It's really not that big of a deal or big of a word. So let's take a look. So the custom property on collections and globals. So if we were to go to our page, we have the custom option here, so we can just add stuff. But now we're able to add our interfaces for the custom property to keep things type safe. So this also applies to the import-export plugin that is in development currently. So what can this do? So if we have custom, I've honestly never used this custom field or custom before. So it's actually done here. Okay, so it's in admin. I don't know why it let me do it in collection. Let's see, custom. Okay, so if I hit custom here, just making sure that this is actually in, yep, collection admin. And then, oh, okay, so if I do, we're learning together here. So we have different custom here. So we have DB name, populate, wait, no, custom, collection custom. Extends record string. Interesting. Okay, so this is where the documentation comes in. So collection custom. Okay, custom. Let's go to our, that's not what I wanted. Docs. Documentation. We can go to our configuration, no, collections, okay. And then look at custom. Extension point for adding custom data for plugins. Okay, so this is plugin specific. Good to know. So this is where you would add like the ability to insert fields for plugins. So for plugin development, you can use now more, how do I want to say this? You can use this to keep your plugin type safe. So that helps with developing external plugins to add fields that you may not know exactly how they're going to interact with other people's collections. And so you now can do this in a type safe way. So that's all this means. But now you have collection custom, collection admin custom, which is what I was seeing there, and then global custom and global admin custom. So both for collection and for global. Perfect. Okay, there's now here the payload instance cache key. I want to take a look here. Allow to specify payload instance cache key and handle endpoints. Okay, making me do some research here. Okay, so this extends on what we talked about last time about how you can now run multiple instances of the get payload instance. So now you can specify what the cache key is and how you handle endpoints and create payload request. So more complex feature, more advanced feature, so it may not apply to many of the people using Payload CMS, but it is something that is available when you're using custom endpoints. So here it does call out that it's useful for multi-tenant scenarios, which is not something I do a lot of. So if you use multi-tenant, this is something that would make sense for you. So now you can control MongoDB connection lifecycle using hooks. There's the after open connection and after create connection. And so you can use this for connection pulling in serverless environments, but you get to do this in a way that you control the logic. So it's just a little bit more customizable, a little bit more, yeah, custom is probably the best word to use there. So yeah, additional setup logic. So you're able to handle exactly how you want your connection pulling to work in Vercel functions. Oh, thank you for saying that. I'm glad that you like what I'm putting out. I'm trying to do more, but you know, life gets in the way. But I'm glad that you find value and that there's a lot to, first, there's a lot to learn with next.js and Payload CMS in general, but I'm glad that you are specifically enjoying it. Okay, so now we've got localization support for the MCP plugin. This is not actually something that I'm going to look into because I don't have localization set up in the other project, but you can tell your AI of choice to create content in English, Spanish, or all translations, or get all translations. So this is something that you're able to do using locale and fallback locale parameters. So you can do this now with all MCP tools using locale and fallback locale parameters. So this brings it up to date with the REST API as a way to communicate with and query data. You can now use the payload request in MCP handlers. So again, I do have my MCP project up and up to date. Okay, then, so we can see in the handler, for tool, prompt, and resource. So I see that in my content, I have some issues here. So let me just get rid of that type error. But now in my, this is not configurable. So in my tools, I've got a handler. I can now pass in, or I can take from my args. I can also get payload. So we can do const payload user, locale just as examples from our request. Args request. Okay, so we have our args here. Oh, async. So if I do async here, I should be able to get args. Well, I don't want to mess this up. That's the only reason I'm like dancing around this. Oh, here we go. So we got our handler here. So handler. We got args. My brain is breaking a little bit. Well, this is just a silly example, so why don't I do something like args rec, extra, so this is going to be message. So now I can come in here and just to show an example, we got our payload user locale from rec. Excuse me. So this is not good syntax here. So let's go ahead and get rid of all this. But I could do something like rec payload, or sorry, locale would be better. And if that exists, we can get the locale. If not, undefined. Perfect. Okay, so you do have all of those options now. And now there's one last UI option here that now allows you to get the block selector for the blocks drawer for use for external use. And you have a new onSelect callback for custom side effects when blocks are selected. So let's take a look at this. This is going to be mostly for custom fields and how like you can extend payload. It's just a way to get the block selector component and get it from the blocks drawer. So the block selector, let's see if I have a project up and running. I don't. So if I come over, I need to go to user. Oh no, it's right there. Hopefully I got this in time. Nope, it went to users, so I'm gonna hit back. All right, so this is the block selector. So this is the component that you're getting, and then this is the block drawer. And then when you hit on select, that would be if you were to click on it, that's selecting. So if you want to do something else, I need to refresh. So if you want to do something else, then what happens based on... So yeah, so if I hit this, this is the on select. And if you want something to happen in between the selection of it from the drawer to what we see now, you can do that using onSelect in a, or as a callback function. All right, let's take a look at the bug fixes and then honestly call it a night. Relationship should not fall back, and fallback locale is false, high turbo back warning, logout inactivity route gets stuck. So a lot of this stuff I still don't see very often. Kind of error visibility handling, properly structured Claude plugin. Do not exist process, prevent race condition. Oh, so this was a big one. Postgres had dicey support when it was, restart. Postgres 18 wasn't working with payload, so the suggestion was always to go back down to Postgres 17. There's now support for Postgres 18 in version 3.65. So if you were using Postgres and you wanted to use the newest version, version 18, you can do that now. Block names didn't get loaded with the rich text lexical field, so now those get loaded. Oh, and there's more. Oh, okay. So this is big too, because I actually talk about it in one of my videos, but for the MCP server, and I actually noticed this, there's this overrides option in somewhere. So if I go to overrides, oh no, this was in the slug field. Never mind. So I will update this though. So if there was an override config, it's gone now. There have been some updates to the MCP docs as well. That was one of the big complaints coming into the beta, is that the docs weren't very good in getting started. So now those have been updated and make it easier to get started with the MCP plugin. And that will continue to get better as more people use it and provide feedback for the feature. So looking forward to that. And to mention again, this is a breaking change. So if you were using the override config for the MCP plugin, it's no longer there. So if you find your project breaking when you go to 3.65, make sure you check the override config for the MCP plugin. Perfect. That takes us all the way from version 3.60 to 3.65. So I now have a fully updated project and also a fully updated MCP server that goes over line by line each of these individual new features and some key bug fixes. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. This is the kind of content I put out. So if you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed this live stream, for example, make sure you subscribe so you get notified when I go live. I have a video coming out on Monday for the MCP plugin. So the MCP plugin and how to get started with that, though it's a little bit dated now, will be coming out on Monday. And I do try to put out videos at least once a week. So thanks for those of you who stuck around and watched this video. Very thankful for everybody who tunes in for even just a couple of minutes to either support what I'm doing or to learn something new. So if you found this video helpful, again, like and subscribe, and I hope to see you on the next one. I close that out like I'm going to cut this up into a video. Oh, I should actually redo that part then. So if you found this content helpful, make sure you like and subscribe. Your support means so much to me. I also have a newsletter that you can subscribe to. It's called Next in Dev. There's a link to that in the description, as well as my Patreon, which you can find as well in the description. Anything helps to help me. Any support helps. How do I say this? Any support helps me continue creating content that seems to help so many people. So really appreciate your support. If you have any comments or questions, suggestions, I'd love to hear from you. So make sure you leave a comment. And until then, I'll see you on the next one. Okay, but yes, so, and until then, I'll see you on the next one. So now I've closed this out like I'm actually doing a recorded video. So, because I am. So I can stick around and chat for a little bit if you all need to. Ask some questions about all of these new updates. Just want me to yap, I can yap, but I think that's about all I'm going to get out of this one. I am going to do a couple of... So I have some plans for live streams. The first is I'm going on vacation next week, but when I get back, I'm going to want to do a video on comparing Strappy and Payload, because there was some chatter in the Discord channel about there's a comparison page on the Strappy website that compares Payload to Strappy, and it's just completely wrong. So that's going to be my next one. But there's also the Cloudflare the Cloudflare template with D1 support that I really want to get into, the SDK that I really want to get into, the e-commerce plugin that I really want to get into. And there's so much going on. So I'm looking forward to diving into each of those, but that won't be for another 2 weeks or so. Yeah, I think that's about it, but I'll hang out, I'll chat for a little bit, I'll yap for a little bit. Oh, okay, a question. Perfect. Do I think Payload CMS is good for making a marketplace? I think it can be. My thought here is that the e-commerce plugin is so young. Like it's the newest, one of the newest plugins, and there's a ton of work still going into that one. Oh, I need to stop recording. So it's something that can be used for that, but there may be better tools for it right now. That said, if you're already using Payload, or if you want to learn more deeply how to use Payload, or if you want to start collecting payments through Payload, sure, use the e-commerce plugin and start expanding from there. And from what I can tell, support is pretty good in the plugin. So if you, like, I'm not telling you not to use it, but if you are thinking about like starting a new store or like creating an enterprise, if you're creating a new store, absolutely go for it. If you're trying to migrate from one system to another, just make sure you have feature parity to make sure that you have all the features that you need in the new system. So if you're moving from Shopify to Payload, I don't know what that looks like quite yet, because again, the feature is just so new. But that said, it could be good to create a marketplace using Payload. So hopefully that answered your question. I know I rambled a little bit, but I would go for it, especially if you're already planning on it. I wonder if there's any, like, if I go, oops, that's the wrong window. I want to check and see if there's anything on Reddit that I can talk about. Because there's been a couple of people talking about Payload CMS in both the next.js subreddit and then the Payload subreddit. So I'm just taking a look. I talked about one that was comparing Payload to Storyblock. I answered that question. Doesn't look like there's been anything new in the last 5 hours, so nothing new that I haven't checked here. So let me go to Payload CMS. And that's last posted in 20 hours. So, and I'm not smart enough to answer anything on the Discord. I'm going to pull it up anyway and see what we get. Ugh. I'm not sharing my screen anyway, so we're okay. All right. Let's see what we get. I already checked the releases. There's no new posts. Wow, it's a quiet night tonight. All right, well, feel free to continue asking questions. I'll be over in the chat if you have anything that you want me to answer or talk about, or maybe I can pop back in on camera. There's something that I want to be working on. I got a new teleprompter, so I want to take a look at that and see how it works. But thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you on the next one.